Right, you kind of got to make your own fun.
Yeah.
Which was a transition for me, going into the morning show here.
Proud. Keep doing the amazing work, will you?
They're learning about how to hire people.
20 years of local matter, so join me every Thursday night and see what's going on in the fog.
After a night out with your friends, there's always options for getting home safely. You could call your BFF, your mom or dad, whoever you can count on for a safe ride home. You could call your favorite cab company or 1-888 taxi guy. Or you could use the Arrival Live smartphone app to help you choose your ride. Be it a friend, transit, or taxi, getting home safely is app easy. Now available for iOS and Android devices. Visit arrivallive.org to find out more. Arrival Live. Drive sober.
You're watching Rogers TV St. John's.
He left his home and left the comfort of Newfoundland and never came back.
The fact that he was shot 3 different times in 3 different battles is amazing to me.
He didn't get very far before he was shot through both of his kneecaps, through both legs.
Here was this whole row of waxed faces.
I've been on a journey with the work that I do for a number of years here. I'm a bronze artist. I cast bronze. I make bronze sculptures.
Coming up underneath your chin.
Nice there. A little bit too runny. My name is Bill Coultas, and I had 2 great uncles killed that day, on July the 1st in 1916 at Beaumont Hamel. A great uncle Norman Coultas, and a great uncle William Blackler Knight.
Close your eyes.
Your head here.
I'm thinking of, these Macs are almost stand-ins for those soldiers as the people that remember.
I'm Ann Chafe. I am a descendant of Will Donny, who was my great uncle. Will Donny was a member of the first 500. He was a Blue Patee. He fought and was killed in Beaumont Hamel on July the 1st, 1916.
Just come over your eyes.
So when you look at somebody's face who's, the great-grandson or the son in some of the cases here, the viewer of that can't help but think, maybe there's something left in that person's face, the visual, like maybe does that person look like that great uncle or that grandfather or father, the connection's even closer. So there, you can't help but think about that heritage.
There it goes. Now, what we're trying to do is get this on as quick as possible to catch the detail on his face. So, and this is going to go pretty quick.
Your eyes.
My name is Bob Wakeham, and my grandfather, his name was Joe Judge, and he was from Point Bird, Placentia Bay, son of a fisherman. And he came into Grand Falls to work in the mill when he was about 18 years old, and war broke out, and he enlisted in the Newfoundland Regiment.
Ultimately, the time that we spend on this earth, the only legacy that really lasts is our sons and our daughters. So these are the things that continue on generation through generation through generation. So.
My name is Matt McLeod. My father was the First World War veteran. His name was Ernest Frederick McLeod. He was a member of the Blue Puttees of the Royal Newfoundland Regiment, and his number was number 24.
These are just some little notes on my grandfather from the telegram over the years.
I've seen this one.
Yeah.
What happens is when you come into the foundry, we'll interview the descendant, basically to get the story down and see, who it is that they're remembering.
I got the picture here somewhere. There. That's the one that's on the book.
This is the one, is that the one in the first 500 as well?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. I
So
just put a few notes on
any artifacts, any photographs, any archival material, they'll bring that in. We'll record that and try to incorporate this into the bigger scheme of things. And then after that, we'll take them and do the actual physical life casting of recording their visage, and it's just all technical from then on. It's spreading over their face alginate, this purple goo that records every sort of landmark and crevice and their face. This comes off. And
Yeah, just a little bit. Just a little. Oh my God, that's heavy. Oh.
And it creates a mold, which is then used to cast the bronze, and then you have a bronze portrait of that person.
My name is Cheryl Stacy. I'm the granddaughter of A.J. Stacy, known as Jim. And he was one of the first 500, number 466, and he was at Beaumont Hamel. My grandfather had a mail bag that he used to deliver the mail to the trenches or to the front lines, and he would sleep with it at night time so they would keep the mail safe. Nobody knew where the bag came from, where he obtained it. But since I've donated to the rooms, they have discovered it was a German bread bag. Now, if he got it off a dead soldier, if he traded it for a pack of cigarettes, who knows?
I can imagine my grandfather being all caught up with the idea of king and country and that sort of thing, but maybe he was, I don't know. But I have a feeling he was a young man, and lots of other guys in Grand Falls were signing up, and I believe he probably thought of it as many did, and many of them referred to it as the Great Adventure. And I think that's what probably was going through Pop's mind as well.
I'm Doug Bursey, and I'm the nephew of John Francis Nichol. He was number 336 of the Royal Newfoundland Regiment. Well, I know he joined up at a very young age. I think he was well underage. He joined up and then when they went up to the Dardanelles, he was frostbitten, and I think they had a hard go up there. They weren't winning and they weren't getting ahead, and he had frostbite and he had dysentery.
Yeah, coming under your chin.
Just want to lift up. Yeah, keep that.
He answered the call, he trained, he served in many battles, and he left his home and left the comfort of Newfoundland and never came back. Will was a young man who had trained as a plumber, had a vibrant peer group and a social life, had a girlfriend. In his first letter home to his mother, he asks about his girlfriend and says, "Tell her I'm going to write." His girlfriend was Maggie Fitzgerald, and I think he worked with Maggie's brother, and that's how they must have met. Maggie went on and married and had a life of her own, and is now deceased today herself. After she died, one of her daughters brought a picture to my mother of Will, and it was one of his pictures in uniform in a lovely little oval frame that even though she went on and had her own life, she always carried a memory of Will in her heart, clearly, and visibly in her home.
Over your eyes. How we doing? Perfect.
My father was Ernest Frederick MacLeod, and my father was one of the famous blue puttees of the Royal Newfoundland Regiment. He was 20 years old, I think, when he signed up, and he did serve the full 4 years, from what I can gather. His two brothers also served in the war. But his next brother, Norman MacLeod, he was a blue puttee, and his other brother, Neil Charles, he was killed in the war, and we're not sure where his body is or his headstone, or where he's buried. I remember saying, or hearing somebody saying in the family, that Dad always thought that he probably walked over his brother's body in Beaumont.
Will, I can assume, because I never met him, was probably like my other great uncles, his brothers. They were all quiet men. They were kind men. They were funny. They had great humor, great music, very talented, but very giving to the family. So the loss of Will was a loss of a major portion of that family, and it rippled through generations, and it's still there today.
I do get the impression from both of them, from records and stuff that I have heard, is that both of them were sort of representative of a lot of young people at that time. They just wanted to be a part of all this kind of stuff. And that old cliche of wanting to go on the big adventure certainly applied. My great uncle Norm Coultas, he's one of those people that kind of lied about his age and got away with it. And I remember my grandfather, Herb Coultas, who was Norman's brother. At that time, my grandfather was married. He had 4 or 5 children, and but his mom said, Norman's underage down there. Go down and try and find out what the hell's going on down there and get him back, right? But at any rate, there was certainly no change in Norman's mind. He wanted to go on this, and he was going to go. My great uncle William Blackler Knight, he just seemed like a kind of bit of a wild fella, right? And of course the concept of going off to war would fit right into his nature, and as luck would have it, we came across several letters that he wrote when he was training over in Edinburgh Castle, and he just, by his nature, he just seemed like he was gung-ho, and he didn't care about the officers. He didn't care. He just cared about being part of it all, and and I suppose at that stage in the game, a bit of a lark.
My name is Lillian Fiddler, and I'm a descendant of Bill Newbury from the Newfoundland Regiment. He was in Company G. He was, in Beaumont Hamel on July 1st. This was his first day of combat. They were so young, they didn't realize what they were getting into, what they were doing. A lot of them went there for adventure, to see what it was like. Most of them, it wasn't a patriotic thing. It was, the sort of being so young and getting caught up in the fervor of it, I guess, and that sort of thing. So, so I think young men, they don't know sometimes what they're getting into by going to war. They don't know. They think that they're invincible, I guess, as well.
Let go of the straw.
We're going to let go of the straw. We're going to take this off now. Tip your head back.
Yeah. That was very uncomfortable.
There we go.
My grandmother, Anne, or known as Annie in those days, typical of that family, and they were a big family, someone would be sent daily to get the fresh meat or the fresh fish. And I think in those days you actually went down to the waterfront or a wharf and got your fish. She was sent one day to get the fish. And it was shortly after the time he had enlisted, or at least got the uniforms. I'm not sure when the uniforms were issued, but it was before he shipped out. And she met him coming along, I think it was Duckworth Street, in his uniform, and she was thrilled. She had the fish money, and I think it was like 5 cents, but I guess you bought a lot of fish with 5 cents in those days. So she decides to, impromptu, let's get our picture taken. So, and I think in those days, there was very few pictures, because pictures were expensive. Not everybody had the means to have photography done. So they went to a photographer's studio somewhere on Water Street, I think, and they got a picture taken, and that picture still exists today. That night, the family, I guess, had vegetables. It was a potato supper because she had blown the money on the picture. And it probably didn't go over all that well. But once he left and they realized the significance of that picture, one of the last images they had of him, all was forgiven. And the picture shows her as a 16-year-old girl next to her older brother. They're both quite proud in that picture, and it is a lovely picture.
But they say that he did deliver the orders to go over the top. That's what we've heard. And he did deliver messages from Colonel Haddo, I think his name was, and to other regiments, the A and B companies. He would run them back and forth besides delivering mail.
I received a cassette from my cousin. This cassette was taped in about 1980 when my grandfather would have been almost 83 years old. And somebody from Time magazine came to St. John's to interview him and some other survivors of Beaumont Hamel.
We went at night by word of mouth to Eric Eyre, captain of our company. He stood up and waved his hand to advance. And he was hardly on his feet before he shut down.
When they got the order to go over the top, he was a ladder bearer. So him and another guy were in charge of taking this ladder over the top. My grandfather was in the back, the other guy was in the front carrying the ladder. And the guy in the front was killed almost immediately. So another guy came along, took the front part of the ladder, and they went on a little bit further, and he was shot as well. And my grandfather said that the bullets were just snapping. You could hear them all around you, and they just broke up the ladder, the machine gun bullets. So he dropped the ladder and just kept going.
No, I got out to, I would say, to no man's land. There were gaps there in the wire, and I went through the wire. And I went on, I would say, probably about 200 or 300 feet. And then I got cracked both knees.
And he didn't get very far before he was shot through both of his kneecaps, through both legs. And so he just, you know, stayed there. He was alive, and that was Saturday morning.
Saturday night they tried to come out, and they came out and they tried to get, and they got me on their back. And my knees are so bad I couldn't stand the pain, so I got them to drop me. They brought out a stretcher. I couldn't get on the stretcher because then I had to stretch my legs out, and one was as bad as the other. Next day, I decided to try to get to the trenches myself. I started Sunday morning to try to get in, and all the way back I could hear the shells, the bullets pumping alongside of me. I knew that they were after me. I had sense enough to realize that they were trying to stop me. And I'd probably keep quiet for 10, 15 or 20 minutes.
And they were trying to pick him off going back to the trench. And so he would move a little bit and then stop, and he could hear the bullets alongside of him and stuff. And so he just inched his way back. You know, he would rest for a while, and so they would think he was hit.
Give them the idea I had been hit, then I'd go on again. So I got in then so far as our trench. When I got up as far as that, I saw left the boys that were killed, just lying there. I was wondering just how I could get up over them. So I made one desperate effort on my feet and got up to the trenches and toppled in the trenches on top of some of the dead men down there.
Grandfather was holding onto this long, sort of tubular piece of metal, and he had the front end, and another guy had the back end, and this was used to blow holes in the barbed wire. And they came out of the trench, came over the top, and started heading over towards the German lines. Pop at one end, and his buddy, I presume his buddy, at the other end, and that guy got shot and killed. So the piece of metal fell. And Pop screamed out, he said, I need help, I need help. Someone come and grab the other end of this, because he was bent over. And as he was doing that, he got shot, and the bullet went right through his hand, and he fell. And fortunately for him, he fell into a crater.
I do remember reading in his memoirs that Haddo asked him if he'd go down the trenches to see what he could see and see what happened. And he went so far down and came back, and he says he couldn't handle it because there was too much agony and people crying out and people wanting help. And, you know, he just came back and said he just couldn't deal with it.
And after that, he couldn't move because the Germans were picking off any of the wounded who lay out in the field. And I often thought about what it must have been like for him. He's laying there, he's shot, he's bleeding, he bandages up his hand, he can't move, and he can hear his friends, and one would assume they're his friends. They must have been a close-knit crowd of guys. And he can hear them getting picked off and screaming for help, nothing he could do. And he later like that all day, and then the shooting died down. And he waited till it was dark. He got on his belly then, and he crawled back to the British lines.
Had the opportunity to go over to Beaumont Hamel, and I think one of the things that a lot of people notice is how small the battlefield is, right? So when I went over there for the first time, I was flabbergasted that you could see the German lines over there.
I don't know what I had envisioned, but I couldn't get over how small it was. I mean, it seems to me it was the size of, I don't know, 6 or 7 football fields in length, and maybe that the same in width. And you could see where the German lines were, and you could see where the Newfoundlanders left the trench, and you could see why the Germans, in some of their own diaries, said that all they had to do, even their worst shooters, were picking off the Newfoundlanders because they just had to keep firing their machine guns, firing, and then they were coming across a small little cloistered area right at the guns, and they were just falling over each other.
I remember reading an account about, there was two openings in the barbed wire, and of course, naturally, the soldiers were trying to go through that hole, and they just got jammed up, and they just got, I think there was up to 80 soldiers in one, and I think there's up to 85 in the other one.
They didn't have a chance. They didn't have a prayer. And when you think about it, imagine 30 minutes, and say there was over 700 men who were actually either shot, either wounded, or killed in 30 minutes. It's impossible to imagine.
There you go. Just pucker up.
But on July the 1st in 1916, the day he died, and that all happened very quickly when they were slaughtered, that day here in St. John's, my Aunt Bride was coming along Duckworth Street, turning up Holloway Street, and saw the back of a soldier going in Prospect Street where they lived. My grandmother was in the kitchen downstairs cooking on the wood stove and heard the front door open, raced to the steps, looked up, and saw the back of a soldier going into the living room. So she rushed back to the stove to take off whatever she was cooking, met her sister Bride in the front door, and they both said, "Will's home." And with that, they were in glee, and they went into the living room looking for him, because that's where Annie, my grandmother, saw him go. Nobody there. So they said, well, he's looking for his mother. So they went to one of the rooms off the living room, figuring that's where the mother was. And the mother was there, but he wasn't. So both were quite adamant they saw him that day. And they've told that story forever. And people say they want to be there on July 1st, 2016 in Beaumont Hamel. I'm staying on Prospect Street. I'm going to see if he comes again. I hope he does.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, that's a great facial, hey, Bill?
There was kind of a lag time between when people were dead and but not knowing it back home. And that kind of happened too with Great Uncle Will night. And what happened there, I think one of the ways they got people to say that they had died was that they used to have, a list of names in windows and saying, yes, we got confirmation. And what happened was with Great Uncle Will night is that his name never appeared for the longest time. So, I mean, the added thing about this business is that not only they had died, but there was the not knowing for the longest kind of time. And of course, it's even sadder with Will Knight because he was dead and they thought he was still alive. He had made it, right? So I'm sure that happened a lot,
On July the 26th, in the year of his death, like 26 days after that happened, it was a telegram came to his mother saying that he had died in battle. And then she subsequently wrote asking for his personal effects because she felt they would be of great comfort to the family to have them. They got back a cigarette case and an identification bracelet that he had. They had asked for a watch, which never did appear. But I suppose we were lucky to get even that. He was buried in a grave with 4 or 5 other people. And that day, he was actually buried that day, and the graves were labeled. So we were very fortunate to know exactly where he was and that he did get buried.
At Beaumont Hamel, if you're over there, at certain parts down in the corner and over to the left or wherever you are, there are small little cemeteries there, right? And I felt like there's just no sign of my 2 great uncles. I mean, they don't have a headstone. Sometimes it tormented me that there was no tombstone. But then the thing that placated me was the fact that there's got to be something there. There's got to be some remnants of their bones or something like that. It's got to be there. And that's the way I look at the battlefield there, and I have been over there up to 5 times now. And you get a sense that, yeah, they're there. And in a lot of ways, sometimes they're more of a part of the battlefield than maybe someone who was buried and got a tombstone, right?
No. Ah, there we go.
Here I am.
Wasn't so bad, was it?
No, but he never spoke very much about it. You know, he was. I guess like the rest of the people that are overseas, they just don't want to talk about it, right? And because I'll give you an example. I worked with Tommy Ricketts drugstore, the VC, and I worked down with him for a year, and he never spoke. You know, you couldn't get him to say he was even in it, you know. But no, Dad just said that he was over there, and he was, you know, sort of like he was in France and Belgium, and he never mentioned Beaumont Hamel. The only time he mentioned Beaumont Hamel would be July the 1st, when of course he would be down, we'd all be down at the War Memorial, right? And my father was very proud man, especially proud of in the Royal Newfoundland Regiment, especially being a Blue Puttee.
The fact that he was shot 3 different times in 3 different battles is amazing to me. And I've often thought, you know, how do you stay sane through all that? You know, 3 different times, shot 3 different times, and in the trenches for almost 2 years. You know, from Gallipoli to France to Belgium, and you know, but he did manage, I guess, to stay sane because he came back to Grand Falls and he married a fellow Placentia Bay woman, and he was from Point Verde, she was from Fox Harbor. They got married and they raised 7 kids.
Yeah, well, they all said he was affected by it. They thought, like, mentally affected by it, you know, because he was that way. I heard a story one time that he used to say to his father, when I come back, I'm going to get enough money, I'm going to buy a .22 rifle, and I'm going to go in by a long pan and shoot a rabbit. So him and his buddy, when they got back, that's what they done. And when they came back that day, my grandfather asked him, "Where's your rabbit and where's your gun?" And he said, "I threw it in the water and don't ask me anything else."
He was very warm, a very warm person, but a bit detached, I think, as well. My mom said, I asked her, you know, what she thought about it, and she said she really thought he was affected. She can't say how. Like, he was a very quiet person, and like I said, he never talked about this. But I think, and I've thought a lot about it, that I think that it affected him. And I also think that those things get kind of passed down somehow. I don't know, like, you can't see the direct results of it, but I think a shock like that can kind of reverberate through sons and daughters and grandchildren, and, you know, so I think somehow it's there, you know? It's there, and I think not just in family, but in our whole culture, really, for Newfoundland, because so many young men and so many families were affected. So perhaps it's there, you know, as well in our, you know, as a whole in our culture. I don't know for sure, but I wouldn't doubt it.
When I was growing up as a child, I just remember this gentle, very tall, gentle man that had a dog by the name of Buck. And they were companions. And looking back now on what we hear today, we're vets to help them with their situation. Maybe that's what Buck did for my grandfather, because I never ever noticed my grandfather being angry. I don't ever remember my grandfather being angry or being upset. I always remember him being just this gentle, tall, slim, old man. That was my grandfather, that we just all looked up to, and he was our pop.
Every morning I usually go for a walk, and every morning I go past Great Uncle Will's home. And, you know, when I'm in a perhaps a reflective mood, you know, I just stop and look at the house. And I've been inside it lots of times, right? And to think that, you know, he was 22 when he signed up. So, you know, up till 22, you could almost visualize him, you know, playing in the yard and, you know, looking out and playing on the railroad tracks when the Newfie Bullet was on the go, and went to school, and you just almost see him there, right?
Matter of fact, he always wore his uniform that he brought back from overseas. And he always wore that on July the 1st. And the whole family just about would attend the service at the July the 1st in War Memorial. I can't ever missing one, probably two in my life, right? It's just one thing that we always will remember, and you know, that's our Remembrance Day. It's not a holiday it's not Candle Day, right? It's Memorial Day, right?
He went back several times, apparently. He took some pictures of the field, and he marked an X exactly where he fell. He kind of found that out somehow, and you know, took a picture of the trenches and all that, and some graves of friends that were killed.
We didn't have any direct conversation about like what happened in the war, Pop, but we had this ritual in which he would describe his wounds to me, and it was kind of a crude game, and I have a feeling that it was him who created it, and he created it deliberately because he didn't want me to ever forget what he had gone through. Not because he was bragging about it, he just wanted to make sure that the story of Beaumont Hamel was passed on. He'd be in a rocking chair usually, and he'd get up off the rocking chair in the kitchen. Like I said, I'd say, show me your wounds, Pop, show me your wounds. The one in Beaumont Hamel, first the one from Beaumont Hamel. So he'd show me, and there was this big scar that ran across his hand and on this side. And I said, okay, now the second one, Pop. The one in the leg in the back here, Pop. And he'd get down and he'd pull up his leg like that, he'd show me. Then I'd say, now the one in the elbow, Pop, the one in the elbow. Show me the one in the elbow, Pop. Now the shrapnel went in there, right, Pop? And it came out there, right, Pop? I knew that was my script, right? And he'd say, that's right, Bobby. He'd call me Bobby, you know? So I said, now, Pop, show me how one arm is shorter than the other. So he'd put out his two arms together, and one arm was shorter than the other, you know? I said, okay, that's good, Pop. And then he'd go have a drink, and I'd go out and chase the hens in the backyard. But we did that all the time. I mean, I'm 65 years old now. I can remember that word for word. You know, it had a profound effect on me, you know. And I think that was what was going through his mind. I really do. I think he just wanted to make sure that I never forgot it.
My three brothers were privy to some information that my grandfather didn't share with me, because I was the girl in the family. And but he did show them his wounds on his legs, on both, because the bullet apparently went in through one leg and right out through his second leg, right through both legs. So he had, you know, scars, of course, there, and problems walking, of course. It's a wonder, actually, that he could walk at all, but he did okay.
At one point in time, we went over on a Sunday afternoon, and he used to have a pan on the floor with the water in it, and my cousin used to go over to the Legion and pick up these bags of powder they had put in the water to do their legs with. And so he had his legs, and he was hauling up the towel with the face cloth on it, with the stuff on his legs, and I saw his legs, and they were like somebody that had been burnt. That's the way his legs were, both his legs. And you know, and his feet looked to be the same way too.
We buried him in his uniform. He was so proud of the uniform that we decided that we'd bury him in his uniform, and he had quite a funeral. And before he was laid to rest, of course, we took off his medals and took his hat and a couple of badges, something like that, right?
The journey of looking at these masks, I see it as almost like a pathway. So almost in a chronological order. You're starting at the beginning of seeing these masks, you know, as the start of the war, and as you exit the viewing of this, it's the end of the war. I'm thinking of taking some of the quotes, whether it's from the descendants who are actually speaking about their great uncle or their loved ones, and picking out some of the poignant remarks that they're saying in these interviews, and actually placing this on the wall as you walk through. And so as you're walking through this, you're seeing the visuals of the words on this wall.
Well, I'm really proud to be part of Morgan's project. I'm proud to be a part of anything that has anything to do with Beaumont Hamel and anything to do with my grandfather. So, you know, myself and Pop are going to be forever joined in Morgan's project.
I'm amazed with that because of the fact that it will go on for centuries, more or less, right? Or even my grandchildren, or, you know, grandchildren here, and they'd be able to come to see it, you know, and you know. Oh, I'm thrilled with it, thrilled, yeah. I think it's a great thing, you know, for them to come up with that idea.
One of the things about bronze is that it lasts a long time. There's examples of bronze statues going back 6,000 years, right? So that kind of appealed to me, and I wanted to be a part of that.
That was my motivation to be part of that project, is that in my own small way, that will symbol keeping his memory alive long after I'm gone. So I think it's a great project. I am delighted that Morgan is doing it. I am delighted that he has the sense of history to know the importance of that contribution to the Newfoundland Regiment.
Well, I think it's only right that we should, you know, remember these people who, some were very young, went over there and gave their lives. And some older too, that left their families, their wives and children, and went over and never came back. And I don't think we should forget it.
I just feel I needed to do it, and I just wanted to be part of it. And it just gave me a different light of him, and I know it just made me feel closer to him.
What Morgan was doing was a really great project, and I really wanted to be a part of it. I guess, you know, for the family, to do it for the family for sure, to be a part of that, and for my grandfather, because, you know, keeping his memory alive is important.
and sparkle like the dew. She smiled and said, "You're the boy I'll wed. I'm to meet you in the foggy dew." Droop your head, your rose of red, as the weeping willows do. You should droop your head in shame before a maid so sweet. And I says, "Pretty girl, won't you be my bride beneath the skies of blue?" She smiled and said, "You're the boy I'll wed. I'm to meet you in the foggy dew." Down the hills I went one morn, a-singing I did go. Down the hills I went that morn, and she answered soft and low. She says, "If you'll be mine own true love, I'm sure that you'll prove true." And close in my arms I will find your charms, will be hidden in the foggy dew.
I grew up in Natty Bay, a little community 6 kilometers from here.
I grew up here.
In St. Lenaire. We met in 65 and we got married in April of 66. First when we got married, we were married 2 years before electricity came here. Oh, we didn't have no fridges or anything then to put things in. We always bought our jam and we always put pear wax on top to keep it from spoiling. You know, that would keep it from going bad on top. And that's how we did the bottling of that then, you know, until electricity came through. Both of us worked on a fish plant. First when we got married, we used to fish, right? Money wasn't very plentiful. You know, we was only getting small pay at our work.
See, back there you lived off the land. That's all we lived off land. There wasn't, you didn't have any money because you didn't need it. See, there was no light bills, no phone bills, no cars. See, you didn't need money.
And we had all those stuff, you know, all of those things preserved, right? When you come home from work and that, you know, instead of come home and cooking the meal, which is days we didn't have time to do, we open up something, probably open up a bottle of mousse or thing and put it on the stove and out of that make some gravy and boil a few potatoes and carrots and that, and there you ate your meal for supper. It was really important for the you know, for us family, right? Beets and the carrot and stuff like that, right? That all comes from our own garden.
We used to set potatoes, we'd kill them up from the beach, and then when the capelin land, we'd put capelin on top. That was the fertilizer we used, eh?
We gave a lot of our stuff away to people who didn't have things. We would share our bottling and our veggies. Say if someone came in unexpected and you was after finishing your lunch or whatever, we had hours to eat. Well, they came in, you open up a bottle of caribou or rabbit and, you know, whatever, right? Moose or whatever they desire. We just do it out in quick meal, you know? We're going to start off by making some beets. We got 5 pounds of beets. First, they got to be boiled, and we just go by the tenderness. And then when they're done enough, we'll throw them in the sink there, and we'll just run some cold water over them. And as soon as the cold water's on, as soon as they're cold to the touch, we'll just take with our finger and thumb and just peel the beets like that. And now sometimes if you don't cook them enough, they won't peel like that. And then I'll cut them up. Some people want them very fancy, but I don't do that. I just cut them up chunks. And after I get them cut up, I'll do the juices, I'll say. The way I does mine, I use 2, 2, and 2. I use 2 vinegar, 2 sugar, and 2 water. That's cups. And I'll add allspice. That's what I put in mine, just allspice and salt. With the allspice, 2 teaspoons, and I'll taste it. If that's not enough, I'll add more. Right on. And then when we get that done, I'll bring it to a boil, and then I'll put the beets back in the pot, and I'll just let them come up to a boil, right? And then we'll put them in the bottles, and they're sealed. If that's not sealed, you know, that's going to spoil.
Oh, yeah.
Or see.
You got to make sure the bottle is sealed.
Yeah, because when you're doing it like that, on the bottles, when they're put in red hot like that, the bottle goes down, you know, the cover, lid will go down in the middle, right? And they'll click and you know it's done. But if that don't happen, the bottle's not sealed.
Might as well take them back.
We always leave it right there for a while. We know the lid don't go down. We'll open it up right away. You know, see, we want to put it back. So I don't like bottled beets. I like my home. I like the ones that I do myself. Yeah.
I love beets, so I love them.
Terribly moved. sea. Let me be the sea. Oh, the sea, my very soul's the sea. Tides and swells are but a part of me. Quietly, hauntingly, mystically moves the sea.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now